When death came calling in alien woods, the explosion tore through their transport ship like thunder through paper. Sergeant Marcus Chen felt the deck plates buckle beneath his boots as emergency lights bathed everything in hellish red. Around him, his fellow Marines scrambled for emergency stations, but Marcus knew it was too late. The ship was dying, and they were all going down with it. Hull breach in Sector 7. Someone screamed over the alarms. We're losing atmosphere. Marcus grabbed his emergency pack and weapon, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought failed. 20 years in the Marine Corps had taught him that when everything went wrong, you fell back on training. The ship lurched violently, throwing him against a bulkhead. Through the nearest viewport, he could see they were falling toward a planet, covered in strange glowing forests. All hands to escape pods. The captain's voice crackled through failing speakers. This is not a drill. Marcus fought his way through the tilting corridors, helping wounded Marines toward the pod bays. The ship groaned around them like a living thing in agony. He had just reached Pod Bay 3 when another explosion sent him tumbling into darkness. When consciousness returned, Marcus found himself hanging upside down in the twisted wreckage of an escape pod. Blood ran down his face, and his left arm felt like it was on fire. The pod had crashed into some kind of forest, but this wasn't like any forest on Earth. The trees around him glowed with soft blue and purple light, their trunks covered in patterns that pulsed like heartbeats. He managed to free himself from the safety harness and crawl out of the pod. His arm was definitely broken, possibly his ribs too. Every breath sent sharp pain through his chest. The air was breathable, but smelled of ozone and something sweet he couldn't identify. Marcus checked his supplies. Emergency rations for 3 days, a water purifier, basic medical kit, and his service pistol with 2 spare magazines. Not much to survive on an alien world, but he'd worked with less. The first priority was finding shelter and treating his injuries. As he stumbled away. From the wreckage, Marcus noticed the sounds of this world. Earth's forests were full of birds and insects, but here he heard deeper notes, almost like singing, coming from the trees themselves. The bioluminescent patterns on the bark seemed to respond to his presence, growing brighter as he passed. Night fell quickly on this world. The tree light provided some illumination, but deep shadows moved between the trunks. Marcus found a small clearing and tried to make a fire, but the alien wood wouldn't burn. He settled for eating a cold ration bar and wrapping his broken arm in medical tape. That's when he heard the growling. 3 creatures emerged from the tree line. They walked on 4 legs, but could rear up on 2, like bears crossed with something reptilian. Their hides were scaled, but the scales glowed with the same bioluminescence as the trees. 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows reflected his flashlight beam. When they opened their mouths, Marcus saw rows of crystal-sharp teeth. He drew his pistol and fired. The first shot hit the lead creature's center mass, but the bullet seemed to pass right through without effect. The creatures didn't even flinch. They just kept advancing, making that low growling sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Marcus fired again and again, but it was like shooting at ghosts. The creatures were almost on him when exhaustion and blood loss finally caught. His vision blurred, his legs gave out, and he collapsed in the alien grass. The last thing he saw was those 6 eyes staring down at him. When he woke again, the creatures were gone. Instead, someone else knelt beside him in the pale forest light. Marcus blinked, trying to focus. It was a woman, but not human. She was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to be made of liquid silver. Her hair was long and white as starlight, and her eyes were the deep blue of Earth's oceans. She wore no clothing, but her skin itself seemed to shift and flow like fabric. "Don't try to move," she said, and her voice was like music. She spoke perfect English, but with an accent he couldn't place. "You're badly injured." Marcus tried to sit up anyway, Marine training demanding he assessed the threat. Pain shot through his chest and arm, forcing him back down. "Who are you?" "Where are those things? The luminous stalkers? They're gone. They cannot harm you while I'm here." She placed her hands on his chest, and Marcus felt a strange warmth spreading through his body. The pain began to fade. What are you doing to me? Healing you. Your people call it impossible, but life finds many ways to repair itself when properly. Guided, her hands glowed faintly as they moved over his injuries. Marcus watched in amazement as the swelling in his arm went down and the sharp pain in his ribs disappeared. This isn't possible, he whispered. Many things your people consider impossible are simply misunderstood. She smiled, and it was like watching the sunrise. My name is Lyra. I am what you might call a guardian of this place. Guardian? Marcus struggled to process what was happening. The pain was almost completely gone now, though he could still feel his injuries healing beneath. Her touch. Are you from this planet, in a way? Lyra's expression grew serious. But I've been watching your world for longer than your species has had written language. Marcus stared at her. Watching Earth? Why? Because we were asked to. By those who came before. She finished healing his major injuries and sat back. You have many questions. Marcus Chun, Sergeant First Class, service number 2847, Alpha 9. He hadn't told her his name or rank. How do you know that? Because your arrival here was not an accident. We've been waiting for you, specifically. Lyra stood gracefully, her silver skin catching the forest light. Your transport was brought down deliberately, and you were guided to this exact location. That's impossible. We were on a routine supply run to the outer colonies. There was an explosion. There was an intervention. Lyra's voice carried a weight of sadness. 17 of your fellow Marines died in that crash. But you were chosen to survive. Marcus felt sick. Chosen? You killed my friends just to get me here? Not killed. Honored. Lyra knelt beside him again, her blue eyes intense. Every human who dies in service to your species' growth is remembered by us. Their sacrifice helps ensure your people's survival. Survival from what? From the trials coming to your world. From the tests that will determine whether humanity is ready to join the greater community of intelligent life. Lyra touched his face gently. You were selected because you carry something special, Marcus. Something your people will need in the years ahead. Marcus pulled away from her touch. Confusion and anger warring in his chest. You're talking in riddles. Just tell me what you want. What I want is what my people have wanted for 10,000 years, to see humanity reach its full potential. Lyra stood and gestured to the glowing forest around them. This world is a testing ground, a place where we bring humans who show promise to see if they can adapt and grow beyond their current limitations. Testing ground for what? For the truth about your species. Lyra's expression grew grave. Humans are not what you think you are. Marcus, you were not born naturally on Earth. You were placed there, created for a specific purpose. Marcus felt the world spin around him. Created? By who? By a race that died out millions of years ago. They left behind guardians, my people among others, to guide their various experiments toward maturity. Lyra began walking deeper into the forest, and Marcus found himself following despite his confusion. Humans are their greatest success. A species designed to be supremely adaptable, innovative, and resilient. You're saying we're some kind of experiment? You're saying you're some kind of miracle, Lyra corrected. Most species develop along predictable lines. They become good at one thing: building, fighting, thinking, surviving. But they specialize. Humans are different. You excel at everything when pushed to your limits. They walked through the alien forest, passing trees that seemed to bend slightly toward Marcus as he passed. The bioluminescent patterns pulsed more quickly, as if excited by his presence. The trees are reacting to you, Lyra observed. They recognize what you are. What am I? The next step in human evolution. A bridge between what your people are now and what they must become. Lyra stopped beside a massive tree whose trunk was covered in spiraling patterns of light. Place your hand here. Marcus hesitated, then pressed his palm against the bark. The moment he made contact, the entire forest erupted in light. Every tree for miles around blazed with bioluminescent energy. And Marcus felt something flow through him. Information, images, knowledge he couldn't quite grasp that. He saw Earth as it was millions of years ago, barren and lifeless. He saw massive ships arriving from distant stars, carrying beings of pure energy who shaped the planet's development. He saw the first humans created in laboratories that spanned continents, designed to be the ultimate survivors. My God, Marcus whispered. Now you begin to understand. Lyra's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Your people were made to spread across the galaxy when the time is right, to adapt to any environment, overcome any challenge, and carry forward the legacy of those who created you. But why tell me this? Why bring me here? Because the time is almost right, and humanity needs guides who understand the truth. Lyra placed her hand over his on the tree trunk. Will you help us prepare your people for what's coming? Marcus looked at the alien woman whose touch had healed him, at the impossible forest that recognized his presence, at the swirling lights that seemed to contain the entire history of human civilization. Everything he thought he knew about himself, about humanity, about their place in the universe had just been shattered and rebuilt. What exactly is coming? Lyra's smile was sad, but determined. The test that will determine whether humanity survives, to fulfill its destiny, or dies as just another failed experiment. The forest lights pulsed around them, waiting for his answer. The secret that changed everything about humanity's future, Marcus stared at Lyra, his mind reeling from everything he'd learned. What kind of test? Come with me, she said, leading him deeper into the glowing forest. There are things you must see before you can understand. They walked for what felt like hours through the bioluminescent woods. The trees grew larger and more magnificent the further they went, some reaching heights that would dwarf Earth's tallest redwoods. Marcus noticed that the forest seemed to be alive in ways that defied explanation. Branches would shift slightly to create easier paths. Roots would flatten themselves to prevent him from stumbling, and the air itself seemed to guide them forward. The forest is helping us, Marcus observed. It recognizes you as one of the inherent, Lyra explained. This entire world is designed to respond to humans who carry the genetic markers of your creators. Genetic markers? Most humans carry trace amounts of the original programming in their DNA, but some carry much more. She glanced at him meaningfully. The explosion that brought you here wasn't just an intervention. It was a beacon triggered by your presence. The moment you came within range of this system, every sensor we have was alerted. They reached what appeared to be a solid wall of stone covered in glowing symbols. Lyra placed her hand against one of the symbols, and the wall dissolved like mist, revealing a passage that led downward into the planet's depths. An underground city? Marcus asked as they descended steps carved from living crystal. More than a city. A repository of knowledge that spans millions of years. The passage opened into a vast underground chamber that took Marcus's breath away. The space was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. Crystalline structures rose from the floor like geometric forests, each one pulsing, with different colors of light. Floating platforms drifted silently through the air, carrying beings that looked similar to Lyra, but with variations in skin tone and build. Some had golden skin that flickered like flames. Others were pale blue like ice, and still others seemed to be made of living crystal. My people, Lyra said as they walked across a bridge of pure light, the Aetherans. We are the guardians left behind by your creators. How many of you are there? On this world, perhaps 10,000, across the galaxy. We number in the millions, scattered on worlds where other experiments are being conducted. They stopped at a central platform where several other Aetherans were waiting. The eldest among them stepped forward. His skin was deep purple, and his eyes held the weight of countless centuries. So, this is the one, he said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in Marcus's bones. Welcome, Marcus Chung. I am Valdris, High Keeper of the Watchers. He's been told the truth about human origins, Lyra said. But not about the test. Valdris nodded gravely. Then it is time. He gestured. and the air around them shimmered, forming images that hung in space like holograms. Observe, young human, and understand what approaches your world. The images showed space above Earth, but not as Marcus had ever seen it. Massive ships hung in the darkness beyond the moon, easily the size of small asteroids. Their design was unlike anything human technology could produce, organic curves combined with geometric precision. Surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like living metal. The Convergence Fleet, Valdris explained. Representatives of the Galactic Council, composed of 17 different species. They've been watching your people's development for the past 2 centuries, waiting for you to reach technological maturity. Watching us? For what? To determine whether humanity is ready to join galactic civilization, or whether you pose too great a threat to be allowed to continue existing. Marcus felt cold. They're here to judge us? They arrive in 3 of your years, Lyra said softly. And the judgment will not be gentle. The Council has seen what humans can accomplish when pushed to their limits. Your wars, your innovations, your ability to adapt and overcome. Some Council members believe humanity has too much potential to be safely integrated into galactic society. They want to destroy us, some do, Valdris confirmed. Others believe you should be kept as a primitive species, never allowed to develop faster than light travel or advanced weapons. Only a few support full integration. Marcus stared at the images of the alien fleet. How do we convince them? Guys, where the test comes in. Valdris waved his hand, and the images changed, showing other worlds, other species. Every race that seeks to join the Council must prove their worth through trials. Combat prowess, technological innovation, cultural sophistication, and most importantly, wisdom in the face of absolute power. What kind of trials? Each species faces different challenges based on their strengths and weaknesses. Lyra moved to stand beside him. For humans, the test will be unique. Your creators designed you to be survivors above all else, but the Council needs to know if you can be more than that. Can humanity create as well as destroy? Can you cooperate as effectively as you compete? And if we fail, the Council will authorize what they call a cleansing protocol, Valdris said without emotion. Your species will be sterilized from the galaxy. No survivors, no second chances. Marcus felt the weight of an entire world's future settling on his shoulders. Why are you telling me this? What can I do about it? More than you realize, Lyra said. The genetic markers you carry aren't just remnants of your creator's work. They're activation codes. When the time comes, humans like you will be able to access abilities that have been dormant in your species for millennia. What kind of abilities? Enhanced healing, like what I did for you earlier. Technopathic interfaces that will let you communicate directly with machines. Predictive processing that borders on precognition. And most importantly, the ability to inspire other humans to reach beyond their perceived limitations. Valdris manipulated the holographic display again, showing what appeared to be human soldiers, but they moved with impossible speed and precision. Their weapons seemed to respond to their thoughts, and they coordinated their actions with a fluidity that resembled a dance more than combat. These are humans who have undergone the awakening, he explained. Your ancestors, trained by us thousands of years ago, then returned to Earth to become the foundation of your greatest civilizations. You've been interfering with human development all along? Not interfering, guiding. Lyra's expression was earnest. Every great leap forward in human civilization has been achieved by individuals who carried strong genetic markers. Your greatest leaders, inventors, and visionaries were all descendants of awakened humans? And now you want to awaken me? We want to give you the choice, Valdris corrected. The process is irreversible. Once you undergo the awakening, you will no longer be fully human as your people understand the term. You will be something more, but also something apart. Marcus looked around at the alien city, at the beings who had shaped his species' destiny from the shadows. What happens if I say no? Then you return to Earth with your memories altered, Lyra said sadly. You'll remember crashing on an alien. world and being rescued by human survivors from another crash ship. You'll report that the planet was uninhabitable and not worth further exploration. And humanity faces the Council's judgment unprepared. Yes. Marcus was quiet for a long time, processing everything he'd learned. Finally, he spoke. If I agree to this awakening, what exactly would I become? The first of a new generation of human guardians? Valdris said. You would return to Earth and begin identifying others who carry strong genetic markers. Together, you would work to prepare humanity for the trials ahead, teaching them to access abilities they never knew they possessed. And after the trials? If humanity passes, you would become ambassadors between your people and the greater galactic community, Lyra explained. If they fail ... double quotes, then I die with them. Yes, Marcus thought about his fellow Marines who had died in the crash, about the billions of humans on Earth who had no idea what was coming. He thought about humanity's potential, about the wonders they might achieve if given the chance to grow beyond their current limitations. The process, he said finally. Tell me exactly what it involves. Valdris and Lyra exchanged glances. You will be submerged in the living matrix, Valdris explained, gesturing toward